best to keep Old Mulkey open, significant, beautiful. So I think that's real important for people to know. I will admit that when I was looking for a job as a 47-year-old woman, I needed to know, because of my husband's health issues, that I was going to work somewhere where I would have health insurance available to me. Now, everybody knows the state of Kentucky has great benefits. All those state employees, they get all that time off, right? Well, I've learned that the greatest perk that I have is not in any employee handbook within the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Working at Old Mulkey has opened doors and gave me opportunities that I would have never, ever had. Coming here a few years ago and touring the back of the house, seeing the back of the house at the Corvette Museum and at the Special Collections Library at Western, I wouldn't have had that opportunity. And those things are so great, such great experiences and learning experiences. I'm particularly proud that I was able to get a grant for the Freetown Church to put a roof on their building. I mean, this is such a historic site in our community. And there was a grant that crossed my desk that I couldn't use, and we landed it for them. I was a facilitator in bringing an original book of records for the Flippin' Church of Christ back to Monroe County. And I tell you, that is rewarding. I mean, I just cannot tell you. And I've had numerous experiences like that, and had no idea that it would be anything but a job. And it is so much more than a job. We were taught very little about the enslaved associated with our congregation. Most everyone knew about Aunt Rachel. Aunt Rachel lived to be 102, was a slave to her mistress. That was all we knew. We have one tombstone in that cemetery, nothing anywhere else. But there was more to know, and we have tried to put up signage that reflected that additional information. And we actually have a grant that we're waiting to hear from right now. We submitted a $179,000 grant to the National Park Service to put a new roof on the building, a new floor in the building, and to expand its its nomination to the National Registry, and it will include more information about the enslaved associated with not only Old Mulkey, but the area in general. Everybody, my mother taught me, it takes all kinds to make the world go around. Well, there are actually people out there that count the different types of floral in certain areas. And there was a professor from Berea who came every spring. And we just drove him crazy because we were cutting the grass too early and cutting the wildflowers. And he gave us this information, and this is just the vascular floral. And because we're talking about, wildflowers, I'll just tell you that I've also learned that it's men who have made all of America's lawn and garden equipment, because no woman in her right mind would have ever put those crazy ripcords on anything. Okay? I mean, you just jerk your guts out, right? I hate those things. Every time I have to start one, I think a man did this. And then, okay, while we're talking about men, I have been asked by hundreds of women in the last 15 years, why are the restrooms way up there at the top of the hill? And I could only think of one answer: because a man put them there. Because none of us women would have done that. Okay? Old Mulkey has hosted cemetery cleaning workshops before. And I just would be lost without my volunteers, just don't know what I would do without them. Unfortunately, it has been my finding that all that a volunteer with brush and some mild detergent in a bucket of water can do is get the loose stuff off. And Old Mulkey has gone to using biocides. And the National Park Service does recommend or accept that as a typical way of cleaning gravestones, and I mean, they clean hundreds of thousands. So I was very reluctant at first. We just kind of played around with it. But this is Miss Hannah's rock. Several prior to, we first were using something that costed about $40 a gallon, a product called Pavix. And now we just use, thanks to a recommendation from Mr. Hedrick there, we tried Wet and Forget. It's not near as expensive, and we have wonderful results. And the reality is, some people might believe that we need to let them age and have their patina. But when the typical visitor comes and they can't make it out, they'll pick up a stick or anything to start trying to scrape it out. So you're better off to try to be proactive. Do y'all have a friends group here? Or is it just your historical society, Katie? It's just probably the historical society. Parks encourages us to have friends group, and I would be lost without my little friends group. I mean, just lost. And they are my go-to when occasionally myself or my .8 has an emergency and we need somebody to babysit the park. They are my go-to when somebody has come in and vandalized the building and I need an electrician and they can get out and shop because I'm setting up an exhibit for the next day. They are so important to me. But I just tell you, Old Mulkey has so many more friends than I could ever begin to count. Even though we only have a handful that attend friends meetings, I have so many more friends. And often at park manager meetings, some of my peers will say, your school board did what for you? The state garage did what? How'd you get them to do that? Okay, the people of Monroe County love Old Mulkey, and I am so blessed that they do. And but my friends come in a lot of sizes and shapes and localities. Okay, you know, there's a hairdresser over in Tompkinsville whose name is just right there synonymous with genealogy, and he has been so good to me. And I have a cousin, Randy Job, who has given me so much documentation and so much support. And then there's this guy that, you know, I don't know if anybody knows him or not, but he has this blog, I guess you call it a Facebook blog, and he is forever cutting out clippings and sharing them with me. And Sam is such a great friend. And so Old Mulkey has so many friends, and I'm so grateful for that. We are trying to kind of reorganize our friends group, and we're going to have an organizational meeting coming up on August the 8th. I think that's right. If anybody wants information about that, just let me know. But truly, we would be lost without our many friends, many friends. My whole life I heard this expression, and all of you have too. And it's very, very true. And this is one of my favorite memories of an on-park occurrence. And I learned during this experience how beautiful a prayer can be, even if you don't understand a single word that someone is saying. These gentlemen made an appointment to come in February. We do have winter hours from the middle of November through the last day of March, where we recommend you make an appointment, and they made an appointment. They were coming from Brazil. I don't speak Portuguese. I don't do snake, don't speak Portuguese. So they brought an interpreter with them. And it wasn't the first time that someone had asked to have prayer with me before they left from their visit. But this Portuguese gentleman wanted to have prayer. And the three of us and the interpreter stood in the parking lot at Old Mulkey, and he was speaking Portuguese in this ear, and the interpreter was speaking English in this ear, and in between, It was just the most beautiful and a very unique and wonderful experience, and I was just so happy to be able to do that. Mama always told me, don't overstay your welcome. And so with that, I will say thank you very much for your attention. Does anybody have any questions? All right. Thank you.
What's the most common adjective that people use?
Peaceful. Now, I am not into the paranormal, okay? But there is something about the meeting house, you know, something about the acoustics, I don't know. But you can have a playground full of kids, and you go in there and sit down, and it's just almost like you're the only person there on the whole park. When Commissioner Donnie Hollins started as Commissioner of Kentucky State Parks, he said Old Mulkey made you feel like you were back home again. But peaceful and serene are the two most popular. Yeah. And then we have people that note a lot. You know, I got married here 17 years ago. I got married here 45 years ago. And someday we're going to create t-shirts that say, I got married at Old Mulkey, his and hers. So, yeah. Anyone else?
How many visitors do you?
About 30,000. Now, we don't have a counter on our road, and we don't charge admission. So we take that register, we do a car count, you know, like at the first of the season. And then if you make a reservation to use the shelter or one of the picnic areas or have a wedding or something, we'll ask you, how many people are you anticipating? We don't go back and count, but that gives us the idea. So about 30,000. Anything else?
Your grant that you talked about
Yes.
with the Park Service, are you trying to get it made into a national shrine or just get their help?
This, Old Mulkey is already on the National Register of Historic Places, which you had to be to apply for this particular grant. And this grant was only for facilities that were owned by a state government, and they had to be significant to history of the, what's that word? I hate that word, semi-quincentennial, the upcoming anniversary of our nation. And so we made the argument because of several of the men that came and were early members of the congregation being Revolutionary War soldiers. That's what we were doing, was making that argument. And the lady that I worked with, because I'm not that kind of a grant writer at all, her name was Leslie Barris. And she will be in Tompkinsville on August the 31st to do a presentation on how you can use tax credits to help to pay for historic preservation. If anybody wants information about that program, she's coming to do that. So, you know, cross your fingers that we get that. If we get that grant, in addition to the new roof and the new floor, now we really need the new roof. The floor will be more period accurate, but we're also going to move this very obtrusive light pole. We're going to take that out of the way too. So, and expand the National Register. So, hopefully, cross our fingers. There are, you know, there's more history in less states connected to the Revolutionary War and our country's founding that knocked out a lot, you know, towards the west, hopefully. So we'll see. We'll see. Anyone else? Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to have been here.